when I met Mike, he asked me how I was going to fix the goalies, and I just said 6 inches. He blew him away, and then he started asking me questions. And when you can get somebody to ask you questions, that means they're in. And so then I explained to him how I did it.
Welcome back to my podcast called Science in Sports. I'm your host Simon as usual, and today I'm joined by Steve Brière. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Simon. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I texted you beforehand. We talked a little bit beforehand. I visited Stockholm for the coaching symposium last year in May, where you had an amazing talk about your journey as a goalie, as a goaltending coach, how you came up from the lower leagues to the high end top leagues in the NHL. And I was really fascinated about your talk back in the day. So I'm really happy to have you here again today and talk to me a little bit about goalie-specific training, the sports science behind it, and also your journey. Steve, before we go into the mix, can you start from the beginning and tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I was born in Montreal, and when I was little, my dad's job moved him around a little bit. So we moved from Montreal to Edmonton and then back to Montreal. And then we moved to Winnipeg. And that's kind of where I really started my hockey journey. I had played a little bit in Edmonton, a little bit in Montreal, but I was young. And so, yeah, my hockey journey started in Winnipeg, played my AAA hockey, minor hockey, and then I went to BC to play junior hockey, and then I made my way to the USHL, and then to college, and then on to play professionally. And when I retired, I had played for so long that I hadn't worked, and so I had started some companies and stuff while I was playing, but nothing really big. And so I wanted to go back to school to do my master's degree, because the first job that I got offered was $30,000 a year, and I already had a wife and 2 kids, and I was like, well, that's not going to get us very far. So I went back to school and did my master's degree, and then I was coaching at the same time. And it just so happened my first year coaching, I ended up coaching a great NHL goaltender named Cameron Talbot. And that just kind of got me back into coaching and the process of coaching. You know, I would say to you that before I made it to coach college hockey, I would just go on the ice and do drills with the kids and just kind of speak from my own experience. But I never had a plan or a process or a goal that I was shooting for or a goal that I had made with the goalies to attain. It was just go out, do some drills, work on some things. And I really didn't have a process. And going back to school to do my master's and working with college goaltenders, it really taught me about coaching more than anything, and coming up with a process and from start to finish. And so, yeah, it was a great year. And then it just kind of brought me back to the love of the game. Sometimes when we play for a long time, maybe we're tired of being told when to get up and what to eat and what drills to do and where to be and so on and so forth. And so it was kind of nice to be done playing for a minute. And then I just got bit by the bug of coaching, and I just dove right in and spent the last 15 years doing nothing but coaching.
I can still remember when you talked about your opportunity you got to coach in the NHL for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You talked about it, and it was fascinating to listen to because you really did your homework, you really did your stuff. Can you maybe in a shorter form sum up how you got this opportunity? Because everyone dreams about playing in the NHL or coaching in the NHL. How did it happen for you that it worked out like that?
Well, I would say to you that I'll give you the quick notes, but a lot of people, I only told about the Toronto job, but the reality is that it had started before that. And it started with, when you coach college hockey as a graduate assistant, you don't get paid.
Okay.
So I did it for free, but I had sold one of my rental properties in order to pay for diapers and food and living. And then I got my master's degree for free. And then
Mm-hmm.
after I was done my master's, you weren't getting paid anymore. So I started coaching junior hockey. And then I also did an internship in the NHL with Mitch Korn in Nashville. And he was amazing and let me do it with him and learn from him game day and the preparation. And he was very instrumental in teaching me about being a goalie coach in the NHL. And that opportunity turned into an opportunity with the San Jose Sharks and getting to work for Wayne Thomas, who just passed away, and work for Corey Schwab. And it was a small role, but it was an entrance into the NHL. And at the same time, I was coaching junior hockey. And one of the junior teams that I was coaching was the Fargo Force in the USHL. And Mike Babcock's son played for that team.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Mike Babcock was looking for a goalie coach, he spoke to his son, said that I would be a good goalie coach. And that was the first kind of 10-second phone call I had with Mike Babcock was give me a reference. And I told him Mitch Korn. He called Mitch Korn, and then he called me back 10 seconds later and he said, "You're coming to Toronto, don't screw it up." And that was my opportunity. And you know I, I knew that opportunity was once in a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I knew how rare it was for a goalie coach to go from the USHL to the NHL. I knew that I hadn't played in the NHL, and so I was up against hundreds of goalie coaches that had played in the NHL, that had coached in the NHL, that had coached in the minors. And so I really needed to be the best. And it's no different than playing. There was no second best. There was no such thing as second best. And so I spent 3 days. No, I didn't go to bed for 3 days. I drank Red Bull and coffee for 3 days. And I read every article, every book, every interview that Mike Babcock had done to learn him as a person. And what I learned was he was one of the hardest working people in hockey and that he was very direct. There was no sugarcoating, no, he used to say, no preamble, just go right at it. And so pontification, that's what he used to say,
Mm-hmm.
pontification. And so learning that, I knew that I had to do my research so well that I could give an answer in a split second because he wasn't going to wait for a long answer. And so I watched every interview and he gave all the goalie coaches that were interviewing one game to do. And so instead of just doing one game, I went ahead and got every single goal the goalies had ever let in. And I made an Excel spreadsheet. And the Excel spreadsheet on one axis was it a slap shot, a wrist shot? Was it a backhand? Was it, one timer? Was it
Mm-hmm.
across the Royal Road? All those things. And then location on the net. And then I made another spreadsheet that was what was the solution for the goalie? Was he too deep? Was he too slow? Was he, you know, did he a wrong save selection? And what was amazing is that the more goals I did, the more it made a heat map of the solution, the
Mm-hmm.
quickest solution to getting results. And I knew that, there's like with any goalie, there's probably 10 solutions to the problem. But Mike wasn't going to wait for 10 solutions. He wanted one solution, the best solution, the fastest solution. And so by doing that heat map, when I met Mike, he asked me how I was going to fix the goalies. And I just said 6 inches. And
Mm-hmm.
it kind of, he blew him away and he was like, "What do you mean?" And then he started asking me questions. And when you can
Mm-hmm.
get somebody to ask you questions, that means they're interested. And so then I explained to him how I did it. And then when he found out that I had done 1,500 goals per goalie, and that I stayed up for 3 days and did this heat map and the Excel spreadsheet, and I was thinking outside the box. All the other goalie coaches probably just looked at the one game, came up with a solution, and presented it that way, whereas I presented it in a totally different way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my favorite part of the story is that, you know, 2, 3 years after I got the job, Mike Babcock and I were doing Christmas shopping in Colorado, actually playing against the Avalanche. And we were doing Christmas shopping the day before, and we went for a drink at lunchtime. And I asked Mike, I said, Mike, why did you give me the job? Like, what did I do that set me apart? And he said, my screen. And for everybody who doesn't know, what I did is I was worried that they didn't have a way to show my PowerPoint presentation to the
Mm-hmm.
coaches. So I bought a pocket projector. And then I was worried that they might not have a good wall to show the projection. And so
Mm-hmm.
what I did is I built my own screen out of paper, out of a big sheet of 4x8 paper. And I rolled it up under my arm and I carried it through the airport, this big, huge 8 foot by 4 foot sheet of paper with duct tape on the back to make it strong so it wouldn't rip. And when I showed up at the rink, um, long story short, I put the sheet on the wall. I put my projector on a desk in the middle of the room, and I made an auditorium for the coaches to watch my PowerPoint presentation. And he always said, if anybody's willing to think outside the box like that and make sure that there was no doubt, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I would have showed up and I just had my laptop and they didn't have the right wire to connect my computer,
Yeah.
or they didn't have a TV to be able to show my presentation, or for whatever reason, there would have been a delay, and maybe I wasn't prepared or set up on time. I left nothing to excuses, nothing to chance. This had to be perfect because this was my one opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and so that in the end, that's what he said got me the job, was my preparedness and no excuses,
That's
and that's how it
awesome.
all worked out.
That's an awesome story. I still remember it when you said it, but to hear it again, and also for my viewers to, like you just said, think outside the box and take it into your own hands, and don't leave it to random circumstances that might ruin a possibility that you can never have again. Maybe that's awesome,
Thank you. Yeah, it was.
Steve. Yeah,
No,
sorry.
I would say it was great. I mean, it's an opportunity of a lifetime, and I was very fortunate to be able to get it.
Yeah, I teased it a little bit before we started the episode. Um, I'll start this way. When I started playing hockey, I was like 3 years old, so 26 years ago, and I started as a goalie and a player. So that's the fun fact I told you about, because we also always had 2, 3, 4 guys who wanted to go in net, so we just rotated, and the one who didn't play in net was a forward in the under 7, under 9, under 13, and so on. And now the question for you, it was, like I said, 25 something years ago. How did the role of a goaltender change in that period of time? Let's say in like 20, 30 years. When you look back at the tape from old NHL games, they didn't even wear a helmet. I mean, it's longer ago than in that time frame, but it changed a lot. But for me, the question to you, why changed it? What happened so the goalie game evolved in such a big science aspect kind of already?
Well, I think that, I mean, that's a big question, and I'll try to
Yeah.
answer it. I'll try to answer it as well as I can. But early on, the game changed because of necessity, right? No helmets, so goalies didn't go down because they don't want to get hit
Hmm.
in the face with a puck, right? Sticks were straight, so not as many guys could raise the puck very well, and So as the guys were able to shoot the pucks harder with the invention of the curved stick in the 60s with Stan Mikita and Bobby Hall, and guys started being able to raise the puck better, well, then goalies needed masks, right? I think 1959 is when Jacques Plante wore the first mask.
Mm-hmm.
What's a crazier part of that story is the last goalie to play without a mask was 1970. So imagine there was a guy who played for 11 more years without wearing a mask. That's
It's
crazy.
crazy, yeah.
But as the game evolved and as the shots got higher and harder, helmets came into play. When the fear factor started to disappear, goalies became more willing to go down, which then changed the position a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you weren't going down, goalies had to really challenge a long distance outside the crease to cut down the angle. They didn't need to challenge as much. And as the equipment grew, as the protection grew to not hurt the players or the goalies, then the goalies' fear factor left. And I think the fear factor for me, I would say in my era, was one of the biggest things that changed my game. When I was 8 years old, you were wearing the brown pads with no padding on the sides, and you would go to make a skate save and you get hit in the side of the leg. That's how I broke my leg when I was 8 years old.
Oof.
But when you would butterfly, there was no padding to go down on the ice, so you would hit your
Mm-hmm.
knees on the ice. Um, so the chest protectors used to be two pieces. So it was a chest protector and then it was an arm protector. And
Mm-hmm.
so you would get hit in the shoulders where the two pieces would overlap. There would be no padding there. So, going down and making those reactionary saves was hard because you would tense up because you were scared of getting hurt with the puck.
Yeah.
And as the equipment got better and that fear factor left, you were more able to move freely because you weren't tensing up for the shot, right?
Yeah.
And as the pads became better and there was padding on the sides, it allowed you to butterfly and not hit your knees on the ice. And all of those pieces of the game have helped to change the game. And then you add on top of that, you add goalie coaches. Like I said, I worked for Wayne Thomas in San Jose. Well, Wayne was like one of the very first goalie coaches in 1980. He 80 or 81, he coached the New York Rangers with Herb Brooks, and he was the goalie for the Rangers, and then he became the goalie coach for the Rangers. And
Mm-hmm.
so the invention of a goalie coach, even if it was part-time and it wasn't really technical, it was still somebody for the goalies to talk to, somebody that understands, that had been in the situations and the positions, and he understood angles and depth and save selections. And so I think that helped to ramp up the game as well. And I think all of those factors help to the evolution of the game. And it's like anything in life, right? It's like, think about music and going from records to tapes to CDs to MP4 to now you can get music anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
anytime, as much as you want, as fast as you want. Technology speeds up the rate of evolution. And goaltending is very similar, right? The equipment I really hasn't changed that much in the last 20 years, in my opinion. It's changed a little bit, but not a lot, not compared to the previous 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
But what's changed now is technology. If you're playing a team and a goalie plays in a certain style, that first game that you play him might have a hard time scoring on him because you haven't witnessed his style. But then the video, they play that video for the players, and the players learn, oh, well, here's a weakness or here's a spot, and then they adjust quicker. And
Mm-hmm.
then what happens is the goalies then have to adjust quicker, and everything just goes faster and faster. And no longer is it decades before changes; it's almost game to game things change. And so I don't know that that'll slow down very much. I think it just And I also think it's a cycle. I think things come back around. And one of my favorite ones that Mitch Korn and I, when Mitch was teaching me and I was learning from him, we used to watch old hockey games on NHL Network from the 50s and 60s. And I don't know if you remember, but early in the 2000s, goalies were doing post load, one leg up, one leg down.
Yeah.
Well, that started back in the 50s
Okay.
because goalies used to put their glove up in front of their face so that they wouldn't get hit in the face. And they used to go down to one knee with their goalie stick and then their hand up at their face. That save selection then disappeared. And then when the equipment got better, then goalies started going back into that again. Then things evolved again, and then it became into the reverse. People using the reverse and adding the reverse to their style. So
Mm-hmm.
now instead of having one way of playing a dead angle shot, there's three ways of playing. You could stay on your feet. You could go down to one leg in a post load. You can go into a reverse post load. You can go into an overlap. And so the game just keeps progressing.
Do you think there is a specific style which is the best, or does it also
No,
depend on the goalie or on let's say the shooter, how you defend that?
I think that all of those factors are very important factors. I think that people's bodies are different. The way you're flexible and the way I'm flexible is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way that you would react to a save might be different than the way that I would react to a save. The way that your mind reacts to what it's seeing is different for everybody. Some people can only see the puck. Great goalies can see the play develop.
Mm-hmm.
So the mind and how it reacts to what it sees and how fast it can process that information is very important. And then that then tells your body what save to make. And so I'll give you an example for you and your listeners. My
Please
wife and
do.
I, when we were driving my son to hockey, my son used to practice at the same rink every single day. I would drive to that rink the same way every time. Make a left out of my house, go to the highway, drive to the highway, make a right into the rink. Never changed.
Mm-hmm.
My wife was going to the exact same rink. When she would drive my son, she would never go the same way. Sometimes she'd go through the city, sometimes she would go through the highway, some ways she would make a left early, sometimes she would never go the same way. But we were going to the same place.
Mm-hmm.
But the way her mind thought about things, I didn't think like that. It's the same thing with a math equation. If you and I were doing a math equation, I might do it in my head one way, you might do it in your head another way. But at the end of the day, we're getting to the same result.
Yeah.
So I think that the way your brain works, the way your body reacts, I think are definitely ways of the way you play a situation. Then I think that comfort is another way that people want to be comfortable. And in order to get comfortable, sometimes you have to be willing to go through the bad to get to the good. And sometimes people aren't willing to go through the bad to get to the good. Sometimes in the NHL, part of the reason it's so hard to change goalies during the season is there's so much pressure on every game that we can't afford to go through the bad to get to the good. And so you have to really work at it in the summertime if you want to make a big change during the season. I think that all of those factors play into a role of why I don't believe that there's one way to play the game. Some coaches believe that. I don't believe that. And if you look at my body of work from Freddie Anderson to James Reimer to Freddie Anderson to Jack Campbell to Martin Jones to Joey Decord to Philip Grubauer, none of those goalies played the same.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Jones was deeper in the net, traditional butterfly goalie. Jack Campbell was, a reactionary goalie, very athletic, very fast. Freddie Anderson was very big, positional goalie. Um, they all had different things. Reimer was a really good battler where he would just battle on every puck and not always the prettiest, but he got the job done. But every one of those goalies had success. I believe the reason they had success was because I was willing to let them be themselves and play their game. And my job was to find a way to make them the best at what they were doing at their comfort level.
Mm-hmm.
And so James Reimer, when I had him in Toronto, went on to be one of the top 10 goalies in the league. When I had Freddie Anderson, he was top 10, set all kinds of records in Toronto and was an all-star. When I had Jack Campbell, he was an all-star. When I had Curtis McElhaney, he set the record for highest save percentage in Toronto. When I had Martin Jones, he won 27 games after being released from 2 teams. When I had Joey Decord, it was his first real chance at being an NHLer, full-time NHLer. Everybody had success. Grubauer had amazing success every year after the All-Star break. He had some injuries and stuff that prevented him from playing at his full potential in the first half. But all of them had success, and none of them played the same. So that's what's led me to believe that. And if you read an article that I wrote in a magazine years ago, back in 2010, I talked about innovation and the ability to play differently are the greats. And I'll give you an example. Jacques Plante was the first goalie to wear a mask. He was one of the greatest goalies to ever play the game. He was the first goalie to poke check. He was the first goalie to play the puck. Changed the game. Mm-hmm. Then you fast forward and you go to Marty Brodeur. When everybody else was butterflying, Marty wasn't butterflying. He was doing one leg up, one leg down, and staying on his feet longer. Then you had a guy like Dominic Hasek who came in and played totally different than everybody else. And he had amazing success. Then if you look at a goalie like Tim Thomas, came in and played totally different than everybody else and had success. And if you remember correctly, when Carey Price first came to the league, Montreal Canadiens were trying to trade him because they didn't like the way he stayed down and slid everywhere. He changed the game. And then, as we all know, every one of those goalies went on to be game changers. They went on to be superstars and elite goaltenders and change the game the way we look at it. So I do believe that innovation, the ability to change your game, the ability to play freely are all factors in success for sure.
So bottom line, that you don't need to change the way the goalies play and make them play how you want them to play, to help them improve their goaltending and add some little details, for example, or help them improve specific movements to make them even better at their own plan, at their own way of playing hockey.
Yeah, it changes at every level, I would say to you, is that, like I said before, the NHL is very hard to make big changes during a season because there's so much pressure on every game. And inadvertently, you're going to have a hard time adapting to new things. One of the things in the NHL is those goalies are so good. They are so incredible and so unbelievable that they are able to make changes very fast.
Mm-hmm.
But I found that if you make the changes in small increments, it was much easier. So over the course of a month, the change might be a big one, but over the course of day to day, it was a minor change equaling a big change. So I'll give you an example with Freddie Anderson. Freddie Anderson always used to use his toe taps when he went into a reverse on the posts. But Freddie Anderson is 6'5", 230 pounds. When he slid into the post with his toe taps, sometimes he would slide off the post and he would lose his balance and either go into the net or outside the net. So what we adjusted was to hit his skate blade on the post and then go into his toe tap. Well, now there's a lot more that goes into that. Is it a fast play? Is it a slow developing play? Is it a play off the rush that goes to the dead angle? There was a lot that goes into it. But at the end of the day, he went from never ever using his skate blade or his shin, just using his toe tap, to by the end of his time with me in Toronto, he was using his toe tap when he could. He was using his skate blade in certain situations, and he was using his shin like Tuukka Rask in other situations. Those were all things that we brought to him, but we didn't say, hey, we got to do everything at once. It was, okay, let's take this situation and let's add our skate blade, hitting with our skate blade on the post first. And then once he got good at that and got used to that and it became his game, then we said, okay, let's go toe tap or let's go skate blade and then go into a toe tap. And so eventually it became where Freddie would do all of them and would never panic when he missed one or the other because he knew he could go into a different save selection. Does that make sense to you?
It does make sense. Yeah. You mentioned briefly, I think it was a couple of minutes ago when we talked about the changes on the ice, that you mentioned you have to prepare yourself the right way off the ice as well in the summer. Do you think, to change the topic a little bit, that goalie-specific off-ice practice is necessary? Off-ice drills, let's say, in the gym or athletic-wise? Or should they be implemented into a team practice?
Well, I mean, again, that always depends on what level you're at, right? Like when you're in the NHL, it is such a hard life and you work so hard every day for so long. You need a break from hockey for a little while. Physically,
Mm-hmm.
your body needs to heal. Mentally, your brain needs to heal. Psychologically, not having the pressure on yourself all the time. So the off ice for the NHLers might look a lot different than a young kid or a junior hockey player. And so I've always done off ice according to the situation more than saying, hey, all goalies should be doing goalie specific all summer long.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's building a base. Let's build a base. You're not strong enough yet. Let's not worry about the goalie specific off ice. Let's worry about building your base, your legs, your cardio, your flexibility. And those don't necessarily need to be goalie specific. It's more about building the base.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe closer to the season into more goalie specific. If a goalie is way behind in their training, maybe we would add goalie specific earlier in the summer so that they get used to the repetition of that situation or that specific movement. So it kind of, part of it depends on the age, some of it depends on the ability. One of the things that I really believe is that you don't need to be doing goalie specific all the time in order to be doing goalie specific training. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
give you an example. Playing football with the kids sometimes. Now, I mean American football. American football, you have to sprint and you're the receiver. You're sprinting, you're making a move, and then you're catching a ball. While you are sprinting, so you're working on your cardio, and
Mm-hmm.
you're having to make a move, so you have to think about what move you're making, and then you have to turn your body and contort your body to have spatial awareness to catch the ball. Very similar to a goalie. You have to have very good cardio. You have to be able to move in these specific patterns. And sometimes you have to turn your body in a way that isn't meant to turn and still
Mm-hmm.
make the save. So you're able to get all of those things, but maybe mentally you're not thinking like a goalie. You're thinking about having fun trying to catch the ball.
Yeah.
Soccer's a great one. I know football for you guys, soccer for us. But soccer, you have to use both feet to kick the ball. So the hand foot coordination is very important. And so as a goalie, you need to be able to move with both feet equally well. So sometimes soccer is a really good sport for goaltenders, for the foot eye coordination. Baseball, catching a ball and throwing a ball, very important. Being able to move your hand in 360 degrees in order to catch a ball.
Mm-hmm.
And we know a lot of goalies that only can catch on one side, you know? So the ability to catch pucks anywhere. And I think the best goalie I ever saw do that was Pecorine. He could catch any puck anywhere, even along the ice. It was amazing. He was extraordinary at that.
Yeah, then let
So
me shoot at him.
sometimes the muffins are the hardest ones.
Probably. Yeah, I was just curious with that question because I think there's room for not improvement, but it's a big talking point here in our area because you never know if you should, or coaches, athletic coaches, you never know if you should implement the goalies into a normal team workout or if you should come up with some, yeah, the goalie specific stuff to phrase it that way. Because the players that they're scaling up and down, they have 40 seconds shift, full momentum. They have to rest, they have to turn out of battles, they have to shoot checks, whatever. And the goalies are mainly in their crease when there's no delayed call or whatever. But they have to get up, down. They have to go from post to post. They have to come in and out in a PK shift. They have 2 minutes of full power action. So there's, I think, a lot of different demands when you compare players and goalies. And for us or for me or also a lot of coaches here, I think it's the question if you should take it to consideration if you put them into normal practice, into normal workouts, or if to just adjust it a little bit or add some specific drills for adductors maybe, or for a little bit focus on more flexibility. You know what I mean?
100%. And I do agree with there is a time and a place for goalie specific training.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that, we look at flexibility. Players never need to be flexible laterally. They only need to be flexible longitude, right? But so you need goalies to be flexible laterally.
Yeah.
Well, that's different. So it doesn't make any sense for the goalie to be doing lunges when he's going to be doing more lateral, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I do agree that there are some times when goalie specific training is way more necessary than doing it as a team. I think that there's another aspect that people aren't thinking about or sometimes misunderstand is there's an aspect of the goalie being part of the team. And if the goalie is constantly doing everything on his own, he's doing his own workouts, his own stretches, his own cardio, his own goalie session, he's never part of the team. And a good goalie is loved by everybody on the team. Like, you got to capture your team because you need them to play hard for you, and you need them to do the things that you need for whether it's a D to the goalie puck handling. There's a relationship that needs to be built. So always being on their own, I don't agree with, but always doing the player side of the workouts doesn't make sense either.
Yeah.
It's like I mentioned to you earlier. Are we building a base? If we're building a base, he could probably do most of the same exercises as the player. If we're building goalie specific, as the summer goes on, then sometimes it transitions into being more goalie specific closer to the season. But you need an aspect of being as a team. So for me, during the season, the goalie's always doing his own thing, his own workouts, but he's with the team.
Mm-hmm.
In the summertime, if the beginning of the summer, usually I just try to do more hey, it's a workout. We're all doing cardio. We're all doing, but even cardio, sometimes I play as a player now and sometimes I go in net.
Mm-hmm.
I'm equally exhausted both ways,
Yeah.
but I'm exhausted different ways. Like the cardio and the muscles you use for goaltending are totally different than the cardio and the muscles that you do as a forward. And so um, I do agree that there should be some specific. Same thing with reflexes, right? A player's not using his hand-eye very often. He's using more of his feet. So you need to have more hand-eye coordination for a goalie.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think a crossover is vision training. For years now, goalies have been on the forefront of vision training. But now players are starting to catch up because the reality is you have to have good sports vision in order for hand-eye coordination, for seeing the ice and seeing the play develop and being able to make passes and so on. So I think that vision training is becoming more and more prevalent with players, and they're going to see some crossover with training with goalies. Um, so I think there's a time and a place, and I also think that really the answer to all this is just a little bit of thought.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is we could sit here, you and I, and we could come up with all the exercises that players and goalies both need. We could come up with all the exercises that goalies need specifically. And we could easily devise a plan that, okay, this is going to be time for the goalie to work as a team with the players. This is the time that he's going to work on his own and accomplish both goals.
Yeah. It's funny that you just mentioned that goalies are on their own, because there's one more topic I want to throw in, and I'm interested in your take on that. And that would be the psychological part, the demands of a goalie. They're in the net like we just discussed for 60 plus minutes. They're pretty much alone the entire time. How is it, or how was it for you, or how is it now for goalies after you work with them for so many years? How to deal with mistakes, how to deal with bad goals? Is it, how do you get the confidence back? How do you handle it that you don't overthink it too much? That you, okay, situation's over, you focus on the next part of the game. It's, for me, obviously difficult to imagine, even though I was a goalie way back ago, but not in a professional setting. How was it for you, or how is it now working with goalies? How do you handle that?
Well, that again, you've got some amazing questions, Simon, and
Thank
thank
you.
you for asking them. Some of these questions are longer questions, and I don't want to put your listeners to sleep. But I would say to you that this season, being out of the NHL this season, I have worked with players, forwards, defense in the NHL, the AHL, NCAA, and all of the goalies in the NCAA, goalies in juniors, goalies in the NHL. And I've been working with them, consulting on the side for all of these players. And one of the things I discovered this year is that the mental side really isn't that much different.
Okay.
And the same thing that the goalie struggles with is confidence, is the same thing that a goal scorer struggles with, confidence. Same thing as the D struggle with confidence. Now, the situation might be different. A D might struggle with staying up in the play and backing in too early,
Mm-hmm.
or not jumping into the play to be offensive with the fear of being beat defensively. That's a confidence thing. A goal scorer feeling like he's going to score a goal or feeling like he can beat the goalie, as opposed to feeling like he can't shoot hard enough, he can't hit the spot, he's not seeing when to shoot the puck, is the same thing as the goalie not feeling confident of holding his ground at the top of the crease and tracking down on the puck, or not having his hands out in front of him and getting into a blocking position and giving up rebounds that then cause goals. All of them are about building confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do we devise a plan to build that confidence up? With the goaltenders, I'll speak goalie specific since this is a goalie podcast. But with the goalies, for me personally, I've always started with, what are you the best at? What do you feel is your strengths? What are you the absolute best at? And start with that. And let's do it every day at the end of practice or beginning of practice, beginning and the end of practice. And so I would say to you, like a Philip Grubauer, he liked specific shots before practice to feel good and then go and do practice. Joey Decord wanted specific shots before, then we would do our goalie ice, and he always wanted to end with another specific drill before he went to practice.
Mm-hmm.
It was a routine that we built up so that they felt their best going into practice.
Mm-hmm.
Then what are the things that you can control? A lot of times people lose their confidence thinking about things that they can't control, the what ifs, and worrying about the what ifs as opposed to what can you control. So most goalies I would have in the NHL, they would always have maybe 3 to 5 things that they felt they would be at their best. So I'll give you an example. A guy's coming down the wing. When a guy comes down the wing, step number 1, you're going to find the middle of your net. Step number 2, you're going to find your depth. Step number 3, you're going to track down on the puck, try to give up no rebound. But if you give up a rebound, you're going back to your post, set up, start over again, right? Some goalies, it might be stick on puck. When I'm stick on puck, my hands are square to the puck, my shoulders are square to the puck, my stick will take me to the depth that I require to make the save. That's an easy one that you can control. Stick on puck. Very simple, right? Very, very basic, but very effective.
Yeah.
Toes and heels. That might be a word in your mind, that toes and heels. When the play is not developed yet, I'm toes inside the crease. When the play develops and there's a shot situation or a chance, I'm going to be heels at the top of the crease. Very simple for the goalie to understand.
Yeah.
They control it and it's not circumstantial. So I always try to start off with that kind of a base. What do you feel good at? Let's do that to make sure you feel good and feel ready. What do you control? That doesn't matter what drill we do, doesn't matter what the situation of the game is, that you can control. And why are we doing them? To ultimately find flow. And I don't know if your viewers or listeners have speak about flow state, but when you play your best game, what are you usually thinking about, Simon?
Normally it goes just like automatically, to be honest.
Exactly. You're just playing.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about anything. You're just playing. That's called the flow state. And the flow state is an optimal state of mind where time and pressure and situations all melt away and all you're doing is focused on stopping the puck.
Yeah.
And so how do we get into that flow state is the key. And so I don't want to give away all my secrets, but that's the key, is how can we get into that flow state, and not by accident. Sometimes people say things like, well, I get into flow state when I make the first couple saves and then I just start rolling. No. And then I go, well, what happens if the first shot of the game hits a leg and goes in? Are you just going to fall apart? What happens if the first shot of the game is a backdoor tap in and you had no chance? Are you just going to fall apart? It's about the process. Did you do the process to give yourself the ultimate chance to stop the puck? and
Yeah.
just focus on the process will take you into that flow state, and then you'll give yourself the best chance.
Yeah.
So in order to keep that confidence, it's just constantly going back to what are the things you can control to give yourself the optimal opportunity to stop the puck. And then your focus is on that is so high that you go into a flow state.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense, yeah, for sure. But there's also this mental part again, right? If there's a backdoor tap in or a deflected puck, you can't do anything about it to stay in the game and not mentally break down.
100%. But you can't control that.
Yeah,
And you
true.
can't control anything about that situation. So forget about it. Whether it was a good goal, a backdoor tap in, whether it was a bad goal, like a guy just wrist shot down the ice and you let it in 5-hole by lifting your
Mm-hmm.
stick, doesn't matter. That is just a end result, and you can't control that. What you can control is, as soon as that play is over, going back to your process. Did I have my stick on the ice? Was I square to the puck? Did I track down? Was I challenging enough? Toes and heels? Was I going back to the post, or did I go outside the post and now I'm scrambling? What are your keys? And all you can that's the way I teach the goalies to let the puck, let it go. Let the situation go. Once the situation happens, you can never ever get it back again.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it. Move on. So how do we move on? Get back on focusing on what you can control. And so that's the way that I would teach goalies to let it go and to move on, move forward.
Yeah.
And the way that I do that is unique. And, sometimes people hear me talk about it a little bit, but I don't show goalies goals against very often.
Mm-hmm.
And you and your listeners can do the experiment yourself, but take any goalie in the world, in any league, doesn't matter, and take 20 goals in a row. I usually used to do a month. And take a month's worth of goals against, or 20 goals in a row, and mark down how many of them were identical.
Mm-hmm.
And you will find that none of them were.
Yeah.
Because it's a different game, different team, different shooter, different score in the game. And so there's nothing that's replicatable. Move forward. Does that make sense to you?
It does. 100% it does. And I have a good thing for you. I tortured you long enough with my deep and long questions. I just have a couple more, if you don't mind, for a little last segment, calling it like rapid fire or some quick questions. So quick answers, also good for that. First one being, what are your secrets? No, I'm
What's that?
just kidding, obviously. Who is the best goalie on the ice you've ever watched?
Watched as a coach in the NHL, I thought Carey Price was unbelievable.
Okay.
He usually beat teams before the game even started. Um, as a child, my favorite goalie was Patrick Waugh, and
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate enough to get to see him live a few times when I was a kid, and I thought he was unbelievable. Dominic Hasek was just incredible as I got older and I was playing. What he was doing was incredible. So I think it's more about when I was in my life, when I was in close every day in the NHL, the guy who could play the puck really well, the guy who could move really well, the guy who could reactionary saves, all those things. Carey Price was pretty impressive to
Okay.
watch. Very, very impressive.
Gotcha. What's one overrated tool to use for goalie practice, if there is one?
You mean as in like a rebound board or cones or
Anything. Just something
okay.
that coaches throw in where you were like, that's unnecessary.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I never really paid too much attention to what other coaches do.
Okay.
And maybe that would be one of my secrets is that I go into every situation as if I don't know any more than anybody else. I
Okay.
try to say to my goalies, you could ask Philip Grubauer. I used to tell the goalies, you guys are the experts. I'm not the expert. You guys are better goaltenders than I was. You guys are in the game. You guys are the experts. My job
Hmm.
is to help you by thinking outside the box. And if I can relay what I'm thinking and what I see and what I believe in a way that you believe in it, we'll be successful. If I'm trying to tell you one thing and you believe in another, it's never going to work. And
Hmm.
so the way that I always found that I got the most out of the goalies was to pretend that I knew nothing about goaltending. Now,
Hmm.
obviously, I had a base and I've been coaching for 30
Yeah.
years, but I would go into it with the mindset of how can we be the best together? And so if it meant I had cones out there for something, the cones, if the goalies believed in the cones and they understood the cones, then the cones were great. If the goalies didn't believe in the cones and they didn't like the cones and it didn't make sense to them, then it's a terrible tool. If I've seen guys used to make a screen board and slide pucks underneath for the goalies to react to.
Hmm.
I myself personally have seen that. I don't necessarily believe in that because that never happens in a game. It's not to say that it's a bad tool. If the coach that's using that tool and the goalies believe in it and they like it, then it works. It's a
Hmm.
good tool. For me, it made more sense to invent dummies. I don't know if you've seen the dummies in the NHL, but I
Yeah.
invented these dummies in the NHL. Those dummies are 6'2" and they're built like a hockey player. And it made more sense to me that that was there. And sometimes I put three dummies on the ice and make it really hard for them to see. But the dummies also have to be moving because in a game, nobody's just standing still. So I might have three dummies out there and three coaches pulling on ropes and moving the dummies around, and the goalies have to find the pucks.
Hmm.
That to me makes sense. And if I can relay my message to the goalie where they understand it and they go, oh, yeah, that makes sense, then it's a good tool. If I say to them, hey, I think this is a great tool, and then the goalie's like, well, that doesn't really make sense. The guy would never do this. And well, then it's a bad tool. So that's the way I look at it. But I try not to compare myself because I believe if I copy other people too much, it's no longer my teaching the goalies.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? I'm trying to
So,
teach somebody else's lesson.
yeah.
And then it's very hard to convince the goalies to understand your vision because it's not your vision.
Yeah.
If it's your vision and it makes sense to the goalie and you're able to convey it to the goalies in a way that they understand the vision,
Hmm.
then I think, whatever tool it is that you want to use, in the NHL, I would say guys are they don't like a lot of tools
Okay.
because it makes no sense to them.
Yeah.
It has to make sense to the goalies. If they are like, okay, we're going to forget about everything, we're only trying to work on one little thing. I'll give you an example the rebound boards.
Hmm.
Rebound boards are they come off the rebounds too fast. It's not really realistic, all this stuff. But if you said to the goalies, hey, I don't care if the puck goes in and I don't care about the rebound board, all I care about is the rotation as soon as it hits the rebound board. That's all we're working on.
Hmm.
Then the goalie's like, oh, that makes sense. If I didn't set up the situation and I just passed pucks off the rebound board and had guys one time the puck in the net, the goalies are like, this sucks. It doesn't make any sense. The rebound board's passing the puck perfectly to him every time. and it's too fast off the rebound board that never would come off that fast in a game, then it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, how you frame the situation and how you frame what we're trying to work on is whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, gotcha. Makes sense. I have one final question for you, Steve. And this one, think about you live in a world where you only have like 5 to 10 minutes of goalie practice before a regular team practice, and you can only do one more drill for the goalies for the rest of your life. What would you choose?
Flank, flank shots, glove and blocker.
What do you mean by that? From the dots outside, or?
A flank to me is the honey hole, like from the
Okay.
middle of the net to the corners of the blue line.
Yeah.
That alleyway is the flank. And
Okay.
if you think about any situation in hockey, power play, where are the guys set up on the flanks? And a 2-on-1, where do the guys skate into the flanks?
Mm-hmm.
If a guy's rolling from the corner up, where's he coming downhill? On the flank. Most shots in hockey are from the flanks because everybody's taking away the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was to work on one shot, one situation, I would say the flank shot, because if you can stop every single flank shot, which isn't possible, but I'm just saying, if you stopped every flank shot, you would already have a 90% save percentage. And then you would
Okay.
be so confident that you would make the other saves just purely because you're feeling so good. So I
Yeah.
would say if I only could pick one drill and one shot for the rest of my life for 5 minutes, plus I only have 5 minutes. So that would probably be the shot and the drill that I would do.
Good thing that this will hopefully never happen, this scenario. But thanks for your time, for your patience with my questions. I know they were a little bit long and deep, but hopefully they were a little bit useful to you to think about some stuff. And I'm very happy with the answers I got from you. If there would be a way to, or for my listeners, to get in touch with you and to learn more about goalie coaching and about you as a person, where can they find something?
I think the easiest way is SPMC Briere, Briere, at gmail.com.
Okay.
So SPMC Briere at gmail.com is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. From there, they can get my phone number and give me a call. But we always have lots of goalie opportunities and coaching opportunities. So if anybody's looking for opportunities, we'd love to talk about it. And I I am very fortunate in my life that I've gotten to be exactly what I wanted to do in my life, and not very many people get to do that. So I try to make sure that I pay it forward and help as
Mm-hmm.
many people as possible. And whether you make it to the NHL or you make it to the highest league is not the answer of success. The answer of success is how many lives can you change. Not very many goalies will go on to play professional hockey. Not very many goalies will go on to play junior hockey. But you have an opportunity to change everybody's life for the better and to use the lessons that they learned from goaltending the rest of their lives. How to handle pressure, how to be prepared, how to think outside the box, how to dedicate themselves to something that they love, how to, when the odds are against you, to keep persevering to get to the where you want to accomplish. Optimism. You have to be optimistic that you can get there. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
what are we doing? And so all of these lessons are lessons for goaltenders of all ages and all abilities, and the goalie coaches that are coaching all levels and all abilities have the opportunity to change that in kids' lives. And if you want to measure the success of a goalie coach, it's not whether they made it to the NHL. That's just they got to coach at the highest level. we know that that's less than 1%. It's 0.0001%.
Yeah.
So that's not the measure of success. The measure of success is the 99% of the kids that don't make it, were you still able to affect their lives
Yeah.
for the best?
And you can only do that when you're doing it by heart and with a big amount of passion. And it seems like you have it, Steve. And maybe someone will text you or will send you an email and learn something new from you. I can only say thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you and also a pleasure seeing you again. You probably didn't recognize me in Stockholm. There were many people attending that symposium, but I'm very grateful to talk to you today. And hopefully, it's not the last time we spoke together.
Well, anytime you need anything, you let me know. And I appreciate you having me on. It's very kind of you to think of me. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, Steve. Bye bye.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow the podcast, leave a rating or comment, and share it with someone who loves sports science. And for more content, follow me on Instagram at science_in_sports_. See you in the next episode.